I was going to say, speaking of the raid race, that's been very. There's been a lot of questions and controversy around. Is it going to be ruined by cheaters? Because this is the first time. This is the first time a raid in Destiny is launching with the Steam cheat kind of system. Because last time when Garden launched, obviously it just moved to Steam and there weren't any cheats developed. But this is the first time in Destiny history that, I mean, I was thinking this earlier, I'm not sure if you know, why are cheats, like, does Blizzard Battle.net have much better anti-cheat? Why were there no cheats like that, and why is it such a thing on Steam now?
So to the best of my knowledge, Blizzard's anti-cheat is just stronger. You'd still occasionally encounter a cheater or two, but you could be pretty sure that they would be gone if you reported them and if they were gone the next day. You'll remember that if we went over to, the moment we went over to Steam, it became the Wild West. It wasn't just a thing of like, these players are here and they're doing all their nonsense. It was also this thing of, these players are here and the game does not have the same supported infrastructure as it did on the Activision servers, So, it's just a little example, but look at the microcosm of names, right? Like, people being able to change their names on Steam alone would have been a hard enough thing to add to tracking stuff. But it also kind of shows how Steam is much more hands-off, because you'll get all sorts of terrible things that are, the names of players. I mean, from my own personal experience, when I was playing competitive with Bob and a friend, we were trying to go for Legend. He was helping me get Not Forgotten. And in the process, we matched people who repeatedly stream sniped us and decided to change their names to racist slur variants of mine. So my name is N-word was a very common one that they would throw up there, right?
Yeah, you get all sorts.
Exactly. Stuff like this is, it exemplifies Steam's like very hands-off procedure to all of it. And that meant that ultimately, a similar kind of process gets done with a lot of their own sort of systems with regards to third-party games that will then have like some kind of online infrastructure. Because they have, they've got VAC bans, right? Which is something internal to all of Valve's products and Valve's games. And it covers like a whole bunch of other stuff too. But ultimately, VAC bans were something that you could look up in someone's profile, but you couldn't necessarily immediately act on in Destiny.
Yeah,
because it's two
weird.
different sets of infrastructure.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the logical thing would be like, oh, if they have a VAC ban on their account, clearly they should just not be allowed to play Destiny.
Yeah.
But, the two different bits of architecture are separate, It'd be
you
like
just
saying,
see people online. It's just like they've got this person's been cheating, and it's just it's like seeing someone next to you in the street and then just seeing this guy has murdered 17 people and still robbed 13 banks. It's just like, why am I playing in a lobby with someone that's been confirmed to? Does anyone monitoring this? Does anyone care? Like, what's going on here? Why am I in a game with someone that's got a VAC ban confirmed? Like, what's going on?
Exactly, right? And the big problem with Steam then also just becomes like, the fact that you then have two companies that would need to work together on something like that, Like, undoubtedly, Destiny is one of the top played games on Steam just because of the raw number of players that jump into it every day. It's not going to be as big as some of the other games out there, but it's still up there, Like, our daily player population is not bad. So when you come from the perspective of the guys over at Steam, there is some small vested interest to making sure that this works well, but it requires coordination from both sides of things. And whilst I say that there's at least a little bit of incentive for the guys who work on Steam with Valve to actually, underpin Destiny with a really good moderation team, or just with the infrastructure that they would need to ensure cheaters don't get into the game, I still feel like it's one of those things where Valve has not always taken a lot of stuff seriously generally. Like, yeah, it would be a really good thing for them to do, but I think they probably won't do it. So a lot of this has to be on Bungie.
Yeah, I think Bungie are probably quite stressed that a lot of, especially, I mean, obviously the launch of Trials, but especially things like the Raid are kind of hanging in the balance of how much they can handle this whole cheater system. But it is weird because it's the first time PvE is starting to, obviously it's a PC thing, on consoles not really much of a problem, but obviously with the raid race, that's led by PC. So for the first time, you're about to see that. That's why I'm just really not like in a good way, but just curious to see how this does go on. Obviously, Bungie's been quiet. They might say something soon. They probably will, but they normally don't say much because it's about security, so they don't delve into details. But just knowing that what people will, it's because it's never happened before. People can't imagine it will happen. But when it comes to a raid race, not they're going to get acknowledgement as being the actual winners, but people can use cheats and just glitch the boss and have infinite health, infinite ammo, and they can bypass mechanics. They don't need to know the mechanics, but they can brute force them. And even with contest modifier, it's, yeah, I mean, as we as we know, cheaters are very, very, very sneaky in this game. So they're finding ways, and they've had a year to plan for it. So it's a very, I think a lot of people are very watching with curious eyes to see how this unfolds, this raid race with cheaters.
I think there's a lot that's really going to be quite telling, but my hope is that the guys inside Bungie would be able to monitor each team that's progressed through a certain encounter. Like, I it sounds crazy to even say, but I almost hope that they're watching these things like Big Brother, where it's just like they can track individual teams, and they can look at like what their different stats are as they're going through the raid. So let's say there is a team where all 6 members have 0 deaths and across the entire raid, and they've cleared 3 encounters. It's like, that's a little bit sus. And then you look at the accuracy, it's like, oh, I see. So all of these guys have 100% accuracy on their guns too. And the most used weapon is a machine gun. Okay, that's very interesting when clearing these things. Ooh,
100%
okay.
accuracy. It's pretty accurate for a machine gun.
Yeah, it's pretty accurate. But no, like there are things which you can use to tell. The problem is that I feel like it's going to be one of these things of, if they're not able to play quote unquote Big Brother with this, it's just going to be these moments where players will feel like there's an incentive to sort of give themselves cheats just to gain that little bit of an edge, right? So like, let's say it is one of those really tense moments where you need to be able to just hit your shots on something and deal a specific amount of damage to like a key enemy in the raid. You know, those are going to be the moments where cheaters get their advantage, because they'll never choke, you know? They'll never choke. They'll always have that stuff handed to them, and it basically not only cheapens the encounter, but also is going to make sure that they will never fail the key mechanic, you know?
I think at the same time, though, I mean, the actual raid race is obviously going to be streamed. Most people participating are going to be streaming. So Bungie is obviously going to be watching those teams. But at the same time, if there are cheaters entering, they're obviously not going to be streaming. And I mean, technically, a team could go and get worlds first, but Bungie might just not acknowledge them. There might be a bunch of teams that go and actually technically get worlds first, but I think Bungie is going to manually, obviously, choose who is the. I mean, yeah, you just might never know. There might be a bunch of teams that get worlds first, but Bungie never tells you about them. They just can automatically disqualify them, and they're not streaming or making content, so no one's going to know about them. But they know they've done it. But Bungie, as we've seen, they have the ability to manually select who gets what the raid exotic at the end, the first fire team. So they should be able to see who's the legitimate. And I think that could be a possibility. That they might just completely just sweep them under the rug, and just because again they can't stream their perspectives, they're cheating. So we might just never hear about them. But obviously the legitimate teams, they're going to be broadcast, and we're going to see them. So we'll see the actual worlds first.
And beyond all of just that, like, even if they're not broadcast, Bungie always does the thing of saying, we have reports of a world's first finish, stand by for verification.
Yeah.
So,
been doing it since
it's
day.
clear. Yeah, exactly, right? Like, it's clear that they have a system in place. What that system is, obviously, they won't disclose for the sake of security, but, you know, if it turns out that there are cheaters in the day one team, I expect us to not even hear about that day one team. And, you know, even like I can imagine a point at which there's like streams out there where they are cheating on Twitch and they're just like doing it so they can try and get through the raid as quickly as possible. I expect even people like that to get grassed on really quickly.
Probably.
Because like, yeah, like this is the thing too. Everybody understands what's at stake here, you know? Like raid races make careers, you know?
Absolutely. Big
Like,
platform. Huge.
Like Triple Rec got world's first hard mode Crota.
Really?
And it's not like... world's
I
first
do
hard mode
remember
Crota on Twitch,
Right.
right? And here's the thing. There was one team that made it before him,
Right.
and they were not on Twitch, they weren't broadcast, they were nowhere. They were actually, crazily enough, they were like a pickup team from LFG. But here's the thing. When it comes down to it, Triple Rec being the world first on Twitch to get hard mode done helped to build his career, you know? And you see it with a whole bunch of other things. The reason why members of Redeem and T1 are so huge within the content creation scene on Twitch and YouTube is partly because of the fact that a lot of their members have been part of day one teams, you know? So yeah, it's a really big deal. And I don't think Bungie needs to be sold on the gravity of all of that. But what I can totally attest to is the fact that I'm still with everyone else. I'm kind of concerned about cheaters on day one.
Yeah, I think like Redeem and Glad and those guys are prime examples of how like they just constantly made a name for themselves by every raid. Always, I'm not sure how many worlds first they've got. I'm sure a lot, but they're always in the conversation. And slowly in time, 4 is it? Slowly in time,
4,
you just see, and you kind of know you kind of come to expect. Like, I want to see what the Redeem guys doing because you know they're very good players. So you want to see how they'll do it, and then you got to see them get known for being obviously very good at the game, being PvE speedrunners, and then in time they started to create content and bring more of the personalities out, and now they're some of the biggest personalities in the community. So they've done such a good job with that, just like branching out. And like you said, it's such a big platform. You can build a career off of, because everyone's watching. There's hundreds of thousands, millions of people watching the raid race across all platforms. So it takes
over Twitch
time to
for the
shine.
day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's time to shine.
And even if you don't win, like, take a look at Datto. Not that he needed his career to be made, but what are the 4 numbers that everyone now associates with Datto, right? Like, 2402 is infamous. Like, the raid makes legends. So the integrity of it's got to be protected.